The sky over rural Indiana was a bruised gray, hanging low like a warning. Emily Palmer gripped her coat tighter around her 6-month pregnant belly as the pickup truck rumbled over the frostbitten gravel driveway. Her husband, Mark, didn't speak. He hadn't said much since they left Chicago that morning, and the silence between them was louder than the country wind. Ahead, the old farmhouse came into view, whitewashed wood peeling at the corners, a wide porch lined with rusting rocking chairs, and a crooked, "Welcome y'all" sign that had always felt more like a warning than an invitation. Emily swallowed the lump in her throat. This wasn't her home. It never had been. Inside, the house smelled of spiced pie and boiled cabbage. The air was hot, heavy. Darlene, Mark's mother, was already barking orders from the kitchen. "Don't let the cold in. Emily, take off your shoes before you drag mud all over my floors." Emily obeyed. She always did. A tight smile stretched across her face like a rubber band about to snap. "Still sickly?" Darlene asked, barely glancing her way. "You sure that baby's still cooking right in there?" Mark laughed lightly, the way he always did when his mother crossed a line, pretending it was a joke so no one had to address how cruel it actually was. "I'm fine," Emily lied. She wasn't fine. She hadn't been sleeping. The cramping had started a week ago, but her doctor said to rest and monitor it. Emily had begged Mark to stay home this year, but he looked at her like she was asking him to commit treason. "It's Thanksgiving. We always go to the farm," he'd said, like tradition was sacred. Like she was selfish for even suggesting otherwise. Now, standing in the middle of the too-warm kitchen while Darlene chopped sweet potatoes with the aggression of a butcher, Emily regretted ever getting in the car. "Dinner's at 5 sharp," Darlene barked. "You'll sit and smile, no matter how tired you feel. Got it?" Emily nodded. Her hand moved instinctively to her belly, as if to shield the baby from the bitterness that always seemed to fill this house like smoke. Upstairs, she unpacked quietly. Their room still had floral curtains from Mark's childhood and smelled faintly of dust and mothballs. She sat on the edge of the bed and tried to catch her breath. The cramps had started again, dull but persistent. "Just a few more days," she whispered. "We'll be back home soon." But part of her knew something wasn't right. Deep inside, where instincts lived. Dinner was loud. The whole family had gathered, Darlene and her husband, Bill, Mark's younger brother and his 2 screaming kids, even a few cousins who always seemed to have opinions on Emily's body. "You're carrying wide," one said. "Must be a girl." "She looks pale," said another. "You sure you ain't anemic?" Emily forced a smile and reached for her water. Her back ached. The turkey smelled nauseating. She tried to stand, but dizziness overtook her. "Sit down," Darlene snapped. "You can nap after dessert." Mark said nothing. He was too busy passing gravy. Emily sat. Trapped. The room was laughter and football and political rants and clinking glasses, and all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart and the sharp pain that lanced through her abdomen when she shifted in her seat. She excused herself halfway through the pie. In the guest bathroom, she locked the door and sat on the toilet. That's when she saw it. Blood. Bright. Fresh. Too much. "No," she whispered. Her hands trembled. "Not now. Please." She called for Mark. He didn't hear. She opened the door, weak-legged, barely whispering his name down the hall. He finally noticed her face, white as chalk. Something about her eyes must have struck him. He stood. "What's wrong?" She couldn't answer. By the time they reached the truck, she was sobbing uncontrollably, clutching her belly, praying to God, begging the baby to hold on. Darlene called after them. "What now?" Mark shouted something about the ER. She only heard Darlene's voice trail behind them, sarcastic, bitter. This better not ruin dinner. 3 hours later, she was discharged. No heartbeat. It happens, the nurse had said gently, offering a pamphlet like that would plug the hole blown straight through Emily's soul. You did nothing wrong. Emily barely moved in the passenger seat on the drive back. Mark was stone-faced. They said little. What was there to say? The driveway was darker this time. Snow had begun to fall. When they entered the house, the fire was crackling, and laughter still bubbled from the living room. The party had continued. Darlene met them in the kitchen. She didn't ask. Didn't look concerned. Well, she said. Emily's eyes filled again. We lost the baby. A beat of silence. Then Darlene's voice exploded. Unbelievable. She slammed a pot on the counter. You couldn't wait 2 damn days. Just had to turn everything into a pity show, huh? Mark looked away. Darlene, Emily started, but the words caught in her throat. Don't you dare act like the victim, Darlene spat, stepping forward. This was supposed to be our family holiday. And now what? Everyone's crying, packing early, kids are asking questions. Emily's vision blurred. You ruined Thanksgiving. Darlene roared. Then, slap. The sound echoed in the kitchen. Sharp. Violent. Final. Emily stumbled backward, clutching her cheek. Get out, Darlene hissed. Go sulk somewhere else. You're not welcome here tonight. Mark didn't move. Didn't speak. So Emily left. Into the snow. Barefoot. Alone. The snow wasn't falling anymore, it was slicing. Sharp sheets of wind blew sideways across the open fields, and Emily walked without purpose, her boots still sitting beside the farmhouse door, forgotten in the chaos. Her socks were soaked, her coat unzipped, her body shivering, but the worst damage had already been done. Her insides were hollow. She had lost her child. But what haunted her more than the silence in her womb was the silence from her husband. Mark hadn't followed her. Hadn't called her name. Hadn't even looked at her when his mother hit her. She stumbled down the long country road, no streetlights, only distant glows from neighboring houses, isolated, quiet, indifferent. Her breath came in painful gasps. Tears stung against the cold. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. She collapsed once. Got up. Again. Until she saw it. A soft yellow glow on a distant porch. Someone was awake. She turned off the road, crunching through a half-foot of snow in someone's front yard. It was a single-story farmhouse with Christmas lights around the eaves, already glowing in late November. The warmth of the lights made her knees buckle again. She knocked once, weakly. Then again, louder. Then, darkness swallowed her. When Emily came to, she was wrapped in a thick wool blanket on a couch that smelled like cinnamon and cedar. Her socks were gone, her feet cradled against a hot water bottle. A woman in her 50s with silver-streaked auburn hair sat across from her, stirring tea. Hey, honey, the woman said softly. You're safe. Emily blinked. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. You did exactly what you needed to do. I'm Linda. You came to the right door. Emily tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her abdomen. My baby. Linda's face didn't flinch. She leaned forward and gently placed a mug in Emily's hand. You don't have to explain. I've seen that look before. You don't need to say it to make it real. Emily stared at her tea. Her lips trembled. Then the dam broke. I lost my baby and my husband let his mother slap me and then she told me to leave because I ruined their Thanksgiving, she choked out in a single breath. Linda didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp or offer a hollow, "I'm sorry." She just listened. Quiet. Steady. I walked barefoot, and I didn't know where else to go. "Well," Linda said gently, "you made it here. And that tells me you're stronger than you think." Hours passed like days. Emily learned that Linda lived alone, having lost her own daughter to a drunk driver a decade ago. She'd been a litigation attorney in Chicago for 20 years, but when grief hollowed her out, she sold everything and moved out here to find peace. Peace, she said, meant fewer people. Fewer masks. Now she kept bees. Raised hens. Read too much. "I never wanted to be anyone's savior," Linda said quietly that night. "But I'll be your witness. That, I can do." Emily couldn't remember the last time someone offered that. Not help. Not pity. Just presence. She slept on Linda's couch that night, clutching a warm pillow against her chest like a child, her body still raw with loss. Outside, the snow blanketed the world in silence, as if trying to erase everything. In the morning, she still hurt. But for the first time, she didn't feel crazy for hurting. 2 days later, Mark finally called. Linda handed Emily the phone without a word. "Where are you?" Mark asked, his tone flat. "My mom's been a wreck." Emily's hands trembled. "Your mom hit me, Mark." "You didn't say anything." There was a pause. She didn't mean it like that. She was just emotional. "This whole thing's been hard for everyone." Emily closed her eyes. "You left me outside," she said. "You watched me walk into the snow and you just let me go." "You needed space," he said. She hung up. That evening, Linda brought out an old photo album. "I know pain like yours," she said. "And I know it doesn't go away when people say it happens. You need to honor it. Speak it. Own it. And then one day, maybe, use it." Emily flipped through photos of Linda's daughter, laughing on a swing, blowing birthday candles, wearing a graduation gown. "She's still real," Linda said. "Even if the world moved on." Emily clutched her stomach again. It was flat now, betraying the storm that had passed through her. "I never got to meet my baby," she whispered. "You did," Linda said. "And no one gets to take that away from you. Not even them." Emily cried again. But this time, it was different. Less of a collapse. More of a release. Emily stayed at Linda's farmhouse for 5 days after Thanksgiving, long enough for the bruises on her cheek to fade, but not long enough for the ache inside her to dull. Linda didn't pry. She didn't force healing. She simply held space, through cups of hot tea, soft instrumental music playing on vinyl, and early morning walks to feed the chickens in silence. Every night, Emily sat by the fireplace in the old floral armchair and stared at the flames, her fingers subconsciously resting on her belly, as if some part of her was still checking for signs of life. Sometimes, she'd catch herself whispering apologies to a child who never took their first breath. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'm sorry I stayed." On the 6th morning, Linda handed her a small notebook. "You can't outrun grief," she said. "But you can shape it. Put it somewhere outside of yourself, where it can't rot you from the inside out." Emily stared at the blank pages. "What am I supposed to write?" "Start with what happened. Then write what should have happened. Then, write what you deserve." Emily opened the book and scribbled 3 words. "She slapped me." It was the first time she'd written it down. The first time she gave her pain form. It felt like touching fire. But it also felt like breathing again. When Emily returned to Chicago, she didn't go home. Mark hadn't called again. Not to apologize. Not to ask if she was okay. Not to come find her. Instead, she used what little savings she had to rent a month-to-month studio apartment in a modest neighborhood. It was small, drafty, and smelled faintly of old radiator pipes, but it was hers. She bought a cheap futon, a coffee maker, and a stack of candles. She turned the silence into sanctuary. She got a job at a bookstore down the street, minimum wage, no benefits, but the owner, a gentle widow named Marlene, let her stock shelves in peace and offered free hot chocolate on rainy days. She started therapy. At first, she only sat there, staring. But week after week, her voice came back, slowly, shakily, like a baby deer learning how to stand. I lost my baby, and nobody held me. My husband let his mother hit me. They blamed me. Like I chose to bleed. Her therapist didn't offer platitudes. Instead, she said, what happened to you wasn't just neglect. It was psychological violence. Emily stared at her. Violence. It sounded dramatic. Too big. But it was true. No blood needed to be drawn for something to be brutal. On the 1-year anniversary of the miscarriage, Emily lit a candle and named the child she lost. She wrote it in her journal, Autumn Ray. Because you came with the falling leaves, she whispered. And left with the snow. That night, she wrote Darlene a letter. She didn't send it. She just needed to say it out loud, even if no one heard. You threw me out like a broken dish at Thanksgiving. You slapped a grieving mother and called her dramatic. You poisoned my first pregnancy with cruelty, and I will never forgive you for that. She burned the letter in a bowl on her balcony. Watched the ash rise. It didn't fix everything. But it felt like a door had closed. Over the next 2 years, Emily found pieces of herself she'd forgotten existed. She enrolled in night school to study psychology. She joined a support group for women recovering from pregnancy loss and abuse. She spoke up more, sometimes clumsily, sometimes with tears, but each time her voice wobbled less. Linda visited twice a year. They'd sit on the same couch and sip herbal tea and laugh about how the chickens were still smarter than most people. Linda once said, "You're turning your wound into a weapon." Emily smiled. "I'm turning it into a mirror. So other women know they're not crazy." Then came the call that changed everything. It was from Linda. "Hey, sweetheart," she said. "Remember what you wrote in that journal about what you deserve?" "Yeah." "How would you feel about making them finally see it?" Emily hesitated. "I don't want revenge. This isn't about revenge. It's about consequences." Emily took a long breath. Her fingers curled around the edge of her coffee mug. "What do I have to do?" Linda's voice on the other end of the line was steady. Sharp. "We're going to sue them, for emotional abuse, medical negligence, and psychological harm. And I'm going to represent you myself." Emily's heart thundered in her chest. "Can we even do that?" "Watch me," Linda said. "You were thrown away. Now it's time to make them answer for it." Emily stared out the window at the winter sun rising over the city skyline. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't feel like the victim anymore. She felt like someone who finally had something to say. And this time, the whole world was going to hear it. 3 years had passed since that Thanksgiving night. Emily Palmer was no longer the woman who cried on a snowy porch with blood on her thighs and silence in her lungs. She had learned how to speak again. How to scream when needed. How to not shrink for anyone. And now, she was learning how to fight back. The first legal meeting took place in Linda's living room. It wasn't a courtroom, but it felt like war planning. Linda stood by the whiteboard, hair tied up, glasses low on her nose, flipping through a file thick with documents. Medical records. Therapist evaluations. Handwritten statements. We're building a case on 3 fronts, Linda said. Negligence. Emotional abuse. Post-traumatic injury. Emily nodded. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. From the weight of finally being believed. The lawsuit wasn't just about Darlene, it was about all of them. The whole family had stood by and let her be destroyed. Mark hadn't defended her. No one had stopped the slap. No one had followed her into the cold. They didn't break your ribs, Linda said, but they shattered something far more intimate, your dignity, your trust, your right to be safe while grieving. And now, she added, they'll answer for it. The formal lawsuit was filed under the name Emily Palmer v. The Parker Family Estate. When Mark received the paperwork, he called. She didn't answer. He left a voicemail instead. What the hell is this? You're seriously dragging the family through court over feelings. She saved the message. As evidence. Discovery phase took 6 months. Linda dug into everything. She subpoenaed Emily's medical records from the ER. She collected the journal entries, especially the one with "she slapped me." She tracked down a nurse from the hospital who remembered Emily coming in with physical and emotional shock. I asked her if someone had hit her, the nurse had written in a note. She didn't answer. But her eyes did. Then came the unexpected twist. One of the cousins, Sarah, reached out. Sarah had been at Thanksgiving. She had seen the slap. And she was ready to testify. I felt sick that night, Sarah told Emily. I didn't say anything back then, because I didn't want to go against Aunt Darlene. But I remember the sound. The slap. And how no one did a damn thing. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. Thank you, she whispered. You're the first one in that house to ever say that. The trial date was set, late November, exactly 4 years to the week after it happened. In court, Emily wore a black suit and a calm face. But under the surface, her hands were ice. The Parker family sat across the aisle, tight-lipped and stiff. Darlene wore pearls. Mark wore regret like a cheap tie, tied wrong and choking him. The opening statement from Linda was soft, but razor-sharp. This case isn't about inconvenience. It's about cruelty. It's about how a grieving mother was shamed, silenced, and struck, then thrown into the snow as punishment for her loss. She didn't just lose her child. She lost her home. Her marriage. Her identity. And it's time this court acknowledges what was taken from her. Darlene's defense tried to paint Emily as emotional, unstable, even vindictive. But Linda was ready. She held up the ER record. The journal. The therapist report diagnosing Emily with PTSD. Then she played Mark's voicemail aloud in court. You're seriously dragging the family through court over feelings. Silence filled the room like a confession. Emily took the stand. She told the jury everything. The pain. The humiliation. The moment her husband chose his mother's comfort over his wife's bleeding body. The night she wandered barefoot through snow. The way she begged herself not to die, not because she wanted to live, but because she didn't want them to win. One juror wiped a tear. Another gripped the railing. The closing arguments came 2 days later. Linda faced the jury one last time. No one here can undo what happened to Emily Palmer. But you can say, with your verdict, that grief is not a burden. That a woman's pain matters. That a slap, in silence, is not a small thing, it is a crime. And when we protect those who harm the grieving, we tell every victim that they are alone. Emily looked down at her hands, stronger now. No longer shaking. She was ready. The jury returned just after noon on a gray November day. Emily sat still at the plaintiff's table, her heart thudding softly in her chest. Beside her, Linda leaned in, calm and composed, whispering, "No matter what happens, you told the truth. That matters." Across the room, Darlene sat with her arms crossed. Mark stared at the floor. The foreman handed the paper to the bailiff. The judge read it aloud. In the matter of Emily Palmer versus the Parker family estate, we, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff. Emily exhaled, slow, steady. The courtroom was silent. We award compensatory damages in the amount of $185,000. And the court further orders an injunction barring the defendants from any future unsupervised contact with the plaintiff or any of her future dependents. Darlene didn't flinch. Mark didn't move. But Emily felt something deep inside her release. It wasn't joy. It was justice. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed the steps. Emily didn't speak. She kept her head high and walked past them with Linda beside her, the wind tugging at her coat, her future wide open. That evening, alone in her apartment, Emily's phone rang. It was Mark. She let it go to voicemail. Then she pressed play. "Emily. I don't even know where to begin. I didn't think you'd actually take it this far. Mom's furious. I guess I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I'm sorry. I should have protected you. I was weak. I know that now. I'm sorry." She didn't cry. She didn't call back. She deleted the message. A few weeks later, an envelope arrived. Inside was a short note from Sarah, the cousin who had testified. "I was scared to speak up back then. But you weren't. Thank you for making the truth louder than the silence. You helped more people than you know." Emily smiled, folded the note, and placed it in the back of her journal. It was never about revenge. It was about being heard. 1 year later, Emily had moved to a quiet town 2 hours away. She lived in a small white house with a wraparound porch, a garden of sunflowers, and a golden retriever named Maple. She worked part-time at a women's center and continued her studies in trauma counseling. And in the early weeks of spring, she became a mother again. Her daughter arrived just after dawn on a rainy Tuesday, tiny, warm, and perfect. Emily named her Autumn Ray. Not to replace the child she had lost, but to honor the life that gave her the strength to rebuild. Linda came to visit a few days later. They sat together on the porch, rocking gently while Autumn slept soundly in Emily's arms. The air smelled of lilacs and morning dew. "I still think about that night," Emily said softly. Linda looked over. "You don't have to forget it to move on." "I know," Emily nodded. "It made me who I am." They sat quietly for a while, watching the trees sway in the wind. Then Emily leaned down and whispered into her daughter's ear. "They tried to silence me. They tried to shame me. But I told the truth. And now, you'll grow up in a world where no one can take that away."